Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out.
Hey everybody, welcome to Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. This is Dave, and as always, I'm accompanied by my good friend Chris.
Hello, everyone.
We've got something new to work out today, but before we get into that, Chris, how's your summer going?
Summer's going hot.
It is.
It is insanely hot. We've been hitting record temperatures. I don't think we've broken many records, but we've hit the exact temperature of record several times this summer. So that's a lot of fun.
And you know what? When I tuned into my favorite podcast, talk about the weather.
That's what everybody does.
Yeah, especially when you're listening to it like a month after they record it. It's good. It's good times.
It's still relevant. I think that what I just said is still be true a month from now.
in Southwest Missouri, absolutely. Yeah, it has been a hot summer here, folks. But like all of America, I think there's been a very warm summer. I have some folks I work with in Texas, and one of them actually melted. Oh, and
wow.
We're gonna miss her.
Yeah, that's too bad. Maybe like an ice cube tray or something.
Maybe we sent a couple 2-liter bottles to her husband to collect her, and no, it is so incredibly warm. Air conditioners going out, exploding, popping like bottle rockets off the side of people's homes. It's crazy times here, and I cannot wait. I'm excited about the utility bill.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be great. We're going to double last month, which that's what we're going for.
Nice.
And 3 times next month. We just see if we can get it up there.
So I'll tell you how my summer's been going. That has nothing to do with weather. It's been going well. We've been having some fun times visiting family, seeing movies, catching up on stuff, and taking it easy. So I can't believe that school is right around the corner.
I know. It does feel like in my mind, I was just thinking, man, we've got a whole half a summer left, and now we're down to the last couple weeks.
I know.
And it's
crazy.
It's good and it's bad, right? It's good to get into normalcy, right? And when this gets out there, folks will be in that, right? And there is something comforting about here's the schedule. There's also something sad about going back to school, and I nothing really changes for me.
No,
but I always feel bad for the kids. But
I still have like PTSD. Like when I see the school supplies at the store, I'm always like, "Oh no!" And then I'm like, "Oh wait, I haven't been in a classroom in 20 plus years."
Yeah. and not one that's used crayons in 30 years, right? So
well,
I mean, everyone likes a good crayon, a good sharp crayon.
Absolutely,
yeah, more satisfying than using that, even if you can't color it well. It's still a lot of fun. So you mentioned going to see movies. This has been a very weird summer movie season. And,
yes, it has.
I'm just going to run down a couple of the ones that have come out that maybe have not been the biggest hits, right? Okay. So we've had The Flash, which is, I think everybody Everyone had the feeling, I'll say everyone, but a lot of folks had the feeling that this was not going to be the biggest success.
Right.
For lots of reasons, right? The fact that the stakes were weird because the DCU is in such a DCEU or whatever, who knows? Listen, the DC movies, right? The Batman, Superman, anyways. I've lost energy for these labels and even caring about it. But everyone knew the stakes were weird, low and weird, and did anyone really care? And I think the answer is no, not really, based off the box office. I saw it. I wrote a little piece for the website. I mostly really enjoyed it. I equally hated parts of it with a fiery passion, but as I've come to adjudicate that, it's more like just the execution was what I hated. The idea was actually really good in the performances inside of it, but that was a flop. Okay, one, tick off. Big, gigantic, expensive, one of those movies they've been making for feels like about 15 years.
Yep.
Actually, I think I laid out the expose in my article. They have been making this movie since the 20s. Long before Ezra Miller was born. Ezra Miller's grandfather was
originally cast.
He was originally cast as the Flash,
and
but he ran
passed it down
too well. And they said, "You run too naturally. We need someone who's awkward and runs weird." And so,
and he said, "Wait for my grandchild."
Wait for my grandchild. Yes. And then we've had that was a big flop, right? And then we've had Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. And calling it a flop, I think it's not going to meet expectations. I think worldwide it will probably make its money back, but for a Disney film, summer tentpole, a legacy series like that, a property that has lots of nostalgic and emotional value, and coming off of a film that wasn't the best, right? I mean, Crystal Skull, Cave of the Crystal Skull. The Crystal Skull was not the best movie.
No.
And I have not, full disclosure, not seen Indiana Jones yet. But I think it's looking like it's going to be not successful.
Well, even
financially.
And I think people will forget that. I don't think The Flash will ever outlive that moniker. I think Indiana Jones, people will forget that it was financially not successful, but I think the legacy has been tarnished. And also, full disclosure, I haven't seen it yet either. I know.
But is the legacy tarnished by this or the previous movie? Did it even matter how good this one was?
Yes.
Okay,
I think if this had been a home run, Crystal Skull would have been forgiven, and Indy could have ridden off in the sunset the way he did in 1988 and should never have been touched again.
Never. Last Crusade.
Yeah.
That's the real.
That's
my Indy.
Of course, exactly. And it was perfect. And even though you have people that say, "Oh, well, Temple of Doom, I don't like that," and "Oh, the tone changed in Last Crusade," whatever. The Indiana trilogy is a good set of films.
Yes.
And no matter how you slice it, it's a good quality set of cinema. And then you get Crystal Skull, which has issues. I don't take as many issues as most people do, and this is not a Crystal Skull podcast, so I won't go into it. But to me, the movie's okay. It had some missteps, but it's okay.
Haven't seen it, so
you never saw Crystal Skull?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the next one. Haven't seen the next one yet. Crystal Skull. I actually rewatched most of it accidentally. It was at the in-laws and it was on, and I ended up just caught my attention, and then it kept it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, was that I didn't keep it because. It kept it because it's actually not as bad as I remember.
Yeah.
And there are problems like the fact that if most of the film was on a soundstage and you can tell, that's a problem, right? And but they're actually, it still at times feels like an Indiana Jones movie, especially during the first half of the film.
Right. Its faults are not in its construction. Its faults are in just a few really bad choices of scenes. And maybe this is a topic we should cover because obviously we have strong opinions of it, but Crystal Skull, it was not a good ending to the series. I understand why Ford wanted to do another one. And I haven't seen Dial of Destiny, and I've seen what the critics have said about it. That worries me a little bit. But on the flip side, every real person that I know who's seen it has said, no, it's fun. It's good. Don't listen to them. So right. I do want to see it eventually. I just haven't had time to get out. I haven't had time to see Oppenheimer yet.
Well, and I was going to mention that. So, and Mads Mikkelsen, by the way, great actor. Love him. Can't wait to see him as a villain, sort of bringing back bringing Nazi back to Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones is at his best.
Yes,
when he's fighting Nazis, I think.
And even though I understand the George Lucas logic of, well, he's in the 50s now and it's an alien movie because that's the 50s. I understand all of that. I think he's wrong. I think it should have been archaeology and Nazis all the way.
Yes, or archaeology and Soviets without the aliens. But anyways, we could go on this forever. But I was trying to make a bigger point.
Sorry,
I derailed this with Indiana. Indy. So then we had Mission Impossible. Yes. I also wrote a piece about the new Mission Impossible. I almost called it Fallout. That was the last one. A much better movie, I think, than Dead Reckoning, but not to say Dead Reckoning was bad. It was just forgettable. And I think that's actually, I would say that's the biggest thing I have, is that my wife and I, my beloved wife, Mary, we were talking about it a week after we watched it, and neither of us could remember anything about it hardly. I mean, it was just like, well, that happened, or did that happen in the other movie, or did that happen in both of them? And that was probably the answer, right? Is that, so anyways, it too is not performing, right? And it too might end up being worldwide, turning a much smaller profit than they would have expected.
Yep.
So, and then you've also got Disney released Haunted Mansion, which I actually did not even know there was another one coming out. I like the ride. I love the ride.
Right.
But, as far as movie goes, I didn't watch the Eddie Murphy one. I'm not going to watch this. That one is like disastrously bad. Like opening weekend was extremely low, underperformed. So what you have is and then I'm getting it. So you've got some underperformers. I think Disney maybe had another underperformer. Oh, Ant-Man earlier in the year. Underperformer for the MCU. Big concerns then later on for Marvels, which I tried to watch Ant-Man, and I'm so checked out on Marvel right now.
I feel the same way.
But now we have two other films, though. They're bright spots.
Yes.
And really burning bright. And that is Barbie, Greta Gerwig's Barbie, and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
Yes.
And they're both getting excellent reviews. They're both, making, good money by any standard, whether post-COVID or just any normal time, right? So it's really interesting that these two have stuck out, and I certainly expected that with Barbie. I did. I mean, it's set up for success. Margot Robbie, big time nostalgic property like Barbie. Oppenheimer, after the performance of Tenet, and I know there was a weird time, but after the performance of Tenet, I wasn't sure that this one was going to, especially considering its length, was going to fare particularly well. It's good to see both of these movies that look well constructed. Haven't seen them. Will see them both. I will see them both in the theater. It's good to see them performing well and getting some real acclaim.
So it's interesting that you bring up, or at least bring us to these two films, because that was something I was going to mention on this podcast and kind of use as a little bit of an introduction to talk about before we get into our main topic. And that is, recently there was an interview with Francis Ford Coppola. And he did the exact same thing you did. He points to Barbie, he points to Oppenheimer, and he says this is the beginning of a golden age of Hollywood. And his point is, you've got two movies. They're not sequels. They're not prequels. They don't have anything previous attached to them. Barbie is an IP, of course, with the dolls stretching back many, many decades. But as far as a movie goes, there's been nothing to compare it to say, oh, well, of course, this is going to be a surefire hit in a producer's eyes. So Coppola's argument is, because you've got these two movies, because you've got people coming out in droves to see them and breaking records, he says that finally Hollywood's going to learn its lesson. It's going to make original films based on original stories. It's going to let the artists take over, and it's going to be a golden age. What do you think of that, Dave?
I read this. What's his name again?
Francis Ford Coppola.
Who's he? What has he done? Anything I'd be familiar with?
Yes. He directed a small indie film called The Godfather. I don't know if you saw that.
I've ate at their pizza place, and it's delicious.
Okay.
But I've never had Mr. Coppola's films. But no, I read that article, and it's interesting. I don't agree. I think that maybe saying I don't agree is not the right. I think that people are consuming movies in different ways, and I don't know if if the genie's going back in the bottle. I think people are now used to streaming. I think people are used to seeing them at home. I think they're tired of paying the insane theater prices for the theater experience. I know that because I was someone who loved the theater experience and wanted to go all the time, and now, it's reserved for special occasions, and it better be really good if I'm going to go drop after a couple, everybody beats us. We all know it's outrageously expensive. Yeah. So it has to be good. And not enough of them are good to justify it. And the experience at home is really good. So I am not, I think it's supposed to be going to a golden age. I would say, I think we're going to see smaller, less expensive productions where the risks are less for the studio, and they don't need to make $1 billion or $500 million to be successful. If they made $200 million, that would be successful because they did it on a budget of 60 to 80 million with a $30 million marketing budget. And if they can, get a $80 million profit on that somewhere, then that's going to be okay, right? There's still always going to be those big, there will be popcorn movies, and I think there will be those event movies, but I think that you're going to see a handful of those, and you're going to see the rest of it kind of smooth out. So I like I like his sentiment. I don't see the logic in it, because we had other films this year that I don't think Hollywood's going to get that lesson. I don't think that there's enough. I don't think that there's enough original creative new stuff out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could be totally wrong, right? And this Coppola fella probably knows a thing or two more about movies than I do.
Well, he's got a few under his belt.
He sells wine, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Oh.
Yeah. That may be the other place you've seen his name. But let me speak to this a little bit, because I think you hit on the real crux here. is that I don't know that Hollywood's going to learn that lesson. Hollywood has a history of learning the wrong lesson from success. And so what I predict is going to happen is we're going to see a slew of not nearly as good biopics and a slew of not nearly as good toy to movie pictures. I think that that's as far as these executives can see. Oh, Barbie made a lot of money. Oppenheimer made a lot of money. Get me an Einstein film. Get me a who made penicillin. Get me a film about him. Let's do that. And they're not going to be Chris Nolan films.
Jonas Salk made penicillin. Mr. F.F. Coppola. Did I say your name right? Jonas Salk.
So I worry that that's what Hollywood is going to learn now. To play devil's advocate and to say, here's a reason that Coppola may be onto something. I do think it's phenomenal that Oppenheimer in 70 mil IMAX has been record breaking to the point that they've extended its run. They've pushed Tom Cruise's little mission movie out further, which I'm sure ticks him off to no end. But Oppenheimer's making huge money in 70 millimeter IMAX. And what that tells me is there is still a big audience out there that is interested in the idea of a spectacle of a film.
Something you can only get at the theater, which 70 millimeter IMAX, that type of experience, that's the only place you can get it, right? Yep. I mean, 3D I think is played out. It's a novelty. It makes also a lot of people sick, and I'm one of them, right? I do not enjoy the 3D experience, but that is something special. So that will get people into the theaters. But I think that the next IMAX movie they'll just combine Tom Cruise and IMAX then or something, right? Think, well, this has got to be the secret formula. Which, by the way, I am not making fun. I love Tom Cruise and I love his movies. I just think this was not a particularly good one, and I think that it stuck out like a sore thumb going up against Barbie and Oppenheimer, and performing the way it did against two films that should have been they should have been the other things coming out at around the same time of Mission Impossible, not. Oppenheimer and Barbie are doing really well. Also, Mission Impossible is there too. It kind of flipped things around. Very strange.
It was very strange. And I'll make two more points because this intro is going a little long. But I will say that your comment about cheaper films that are less risk, I think that you have the production company A24 that is proving that. In spades right now.
Yeah, a lot of
No, I'm not saying the content.
No, right. They're doing a very particular type of movie.
Sure.
That lends itself to that. I think that we'll have to figure out how to spread that around other genres. But yeah, they make good movies, right? It just they haven't made a Van Damme movie yet, right? When they get around to that, the Van Damme Seagal buddy cop movie I've been waiting for.
That's the one.
Well, I should write that. I should have AI write that.
There you go.
Too lazy to do it myself.
So I think that the idea that you can take one Marvel movie, decide, you know what, we're not going to make this one. Instead, we're going to make 8 $30 million movies,
right,
and put those in theaters and see what comes out of it. I think that might be something we start to see in the industry. I hope so. And then the last thing I'll say to this point is, even though I haven't had a chance to see Oppenheimer, my daughter was in town and she wanted to go see Barbie. So we did as a family go see Barbie. And the only showing that we could get tickets to was an afternoon showing that had closed caption enabled for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Because that was the only tickets available.
It's that hot.
It's that hot.
It makes me glad to see that.
Yeah. So we went and saw it, and I'm not convinced that I liked it, but the rest of my family really enjoyed it. And it is a very unique picture. And the angle they took was not what I expected at all. And it was a very interesting movie. It was very well done. Props to Greta Gerwig. I think she did a fantastic job, not only on the scripting, but also the directing. And it's got some great jokes. There were a couple of times that I was just rolling out of my seat laughing. But is it going to be a golden age? I hope so.
Yeah.
But I think Coppola is blowing this one up a little bit.
Maybe he's doing that to sort of prime the pump for Megalopolis. Megalopolis?
Yeah.
Megalopolis? How do you say it?
I honestly don't know. Megaopolis, I believe.
Is that one of those like sci-fi direct movies about dinosaurs? Is that what this is going to be?
No. It's so the synopses that I've read of it are it's a pretty politically charged, not like modern politics, but like it's a political story about this fictional mega city. It sounds fascinating. I'm in, because every time Coppola says I'm going to do something that changes cinema, historically he's done it. So I'm interested to see, and maybe he is priming the pump, and maybe Megaopolis will be the next Oppenheimer. And, you know, and maybe that'll continue it on, and maybe that'll just help kind of push this golden age idea. Because, you know, man, you look back to like pre-Star Wars 1970s films, and you just, it's amazing movie after amazing movie after amazing movie. And I think back to when I was a kid in the mid 80s, it was just amazing movie after amazing movie after amazing movie. I'd love to get back to that, because something that I didn't know I was missing was the theater experience. And especially when COVID hit, I thought to myself, well, I got a big TV, I got a decent sound system, what do I need a theater for? And then as there have been movies coming out that we've wanted to go see as a family, I've refound my love of going to the theater. And so I want more reasons to go to the theater.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We've been searching, and we've been burned here recently a few times. Boy, that always gets you. But you know, all it takes is one great theater experience to bring it back. I do think it's nice to hear from Coppola saying what he's saying, right, about the golden age. Considering, you know, Marty Scorsese just a few years back was talking smack on the Marvel films,
right?
For not because of the quality of Phase 5. He wasn't there with his cork board and the pictures connecting the dots. Say this. Phase 4 was brilliant. Phase 3 was great, and Phase 5, I don't like this. And no, he was just talking smack about, you know, these what he would consider prepackaged films that are not really movies. These Marvel movies that were made for consumption by the mass audience, and saying those sort of negative things. It's nice to see Coppola, one of these. You know, sort of the legends of filmmaking that are still around doing it, say some positive things about the current stuff. Yeah. Right. I'm not surprised he said those things about Nolan. I mean, these guys have to look at Nolan and say, this is the next generation of great filmmakers. This is our next Kubrick, right, or whatever. But I was kind of surprised to hear that about Barbie, because, you know, it's a toy turned into a movie, and next thing you know, they'll be talking about how great the third G.I. Joe is going to be, or whatever, the fourth or whatever it is. But it was interesting, though. You go from Marty Scorsese saying that they weren't films, they weren't cinema, whatever. What does that mean? You don't watch them in a cinema? I mean, that's the most ridiculous, gatekeeping, elitist garbage. Ugh. But now you've got I have to look back at my notes for the word Coppola, like, because I was playing that I didn't know who he was, and now I think I may have actually caused some permanent damage. But you see that's a nice dichotomy. But you know what I think, though? I think that if Martin Scorsese would have opened his heart to these comic book films, then he might have been able to look and say, you know what, there's one character that I really like, and then we could have had a serious conversation about what I think is a very important topic. Would you like to guess what that is?
Would that be all the different Batman?
Well, yeah, absolutely it would.
Okay. Good.
And more specifically, who's your Batman?
When discussing Batman, you know, we could start in many different ways. We could start at the very beginning of the first Batman on screen. We could start with the last Batman performance that we saw. But what I want to know, Dave, is the first Batman you were exposed to in life, in cinema.
In cinema.
Yeah, in cinema.
So that would not be the Super Friends Batman, because I did not get to go. That was not cinema.
No.
I'll agree with Martin Scorsese. Super Friends from the 70s and 80s was not cinema.
No, that was television.
Marty
Different.
is right.
Yeah. And actually, I just realized that my own stipulations, I have also excluded Adam West. So if he was your first exposure.
Batman 66, the movie.
Oh, that was in cinema. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
So, I did think about that. So my first exposure, right? I read comic books. I knew, and I made a Super Friends joke, and I did like Super Friends, and I saw them on the cartoon. But you know, I think along with so many people of a certain age, Batman '89, the hype machine that went along with it, the commercials, the cereal, the trading cards, I'm sure underwear and T-shirts and all the other stuff that goes along with that. Batman '89 was ever present, and it was the first really big comic book movie since the Salkins brought Richard Donner's Superman and Christopher Reeve back to the big screen, and then the subsequent releases, which we don't need to get into all that, but this was a really big deal. This was supposed to be sort of a grown-up, dark, entertaining Batman by a progressive director, up and coming, Tim Burton, and it was going to be his take. And everybody knew that Burton had a certain style and a certain language that he communicated with, and it was seen to be an oddly perfect fit maybe for the property. And so everyone in the world was excited. I was excited. I was 11. Of course I was excited. And then you had Jack Nicholson as the Joker. You had, Michael Keaton as the Batman. And so that's the first getting, preparing for that, seeing the trailers, saw the commercials. I didn't go to the theaters enough to see the trailers. Saw the commercials and getting excited for that. And then, the Mr. Mom guy playing Batman. That was my first exposure to Batman on the big screen.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was my first exposure to Batman on the big screen as well. And I was young, but I was still conscious enough of films to understand that Michael Keaton was an odd choice. He was coming off of Beetlejuice, and Burton had worked with him on that. And I'm sure that's where the idea came from. Is that Burton knew Keaton's chops. He knew what this guy was capable of. He'd worked with him before. And then he saw an opportunity going into his next film to bring him along for Batman. But to the public, I just remember thinking, it wasn't Mr. Mom. Gung Ho was my Michael Keaton film.
That was a big, sort of 80s movie
exactly,
that said everything you needed to know about the 80s.
So this guy that revamps car factories, he's the one that's going to be Batman? Like, I didn't understand it. But Jack Nicholson brought the gravitas to that movie. And it was like just like you were saying, it's going to be adult. It's going to be, serious and important and that all those kinds of things. And even though it was a PG-13 movie, it was heavily marketed to children.
Yeah.
I remember that. And so there was
action figures.
Oh yeah, everything. I'm sure there's Happy Meals
Breakfast
involved
cereals.
and all those things. And in my household there was absolutely no question we were going to see Batman. And so I don't think we saw it like opening weekend or anything like that. My parents weren't that aggressive with movie going, but we definitely saw it in the theaters. And I remember when it came out on VHS, that was world changing.
Yeah.
Because back then it would take 3-4 years for a movie to transition from theater to VHS, and I think they got that one out in like less than a year.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that was one of the big things they got it out. Wasn't before Christmas because I think it was a May release, wasn't it, in the summer?
Yeah, and I don't remember when the VHS hit, but I remember that being such a big deal. It was. And we got it. And back then VHS movies were crazy expensive, but I think Batman landed at like $16 or something like that.
It was they were phasing out rental pricing at the time, or they started that process.
Right.
Such a weird practice. We don't even think in those terms anymore. But back in the day, for our younger listeners, those under 30, there used to be a practice when videos would come out, VHS videos in the 80s, in particular, they had rental pricing, which were, as much as a couple $100 a cassette that were sold not to the public, but rather to the owners of video rental stores. And then the video rental stores would then have an exclusive opportunity to rent those out for a period of time before they were on HBO or available to purchase. And that was part of what helped create that market for video rental that was such a big deal in the 80s.
And Batman was so big, he skipped all of that.
He skipped all that. He punched it right in the face.
Yes, and so not only did I have that as a first experience of Batman in cinema, but very quickly I had it at home, and I could rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it, because that's the kind of kid I was, and it drove my parents crazy just watching the same movie over and over again. So Keaton, really has an impression on me as a Batman. But now that we've discussed our first impressions, where do you want to go next? You want to go back to the original on-screen Batman?
So that's where it went right after that for me. So we opened that world up, right, in '89, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted to get in on the Batman action. So there was a couple things that became available. The Batman '66 TV show. I think it was ABC made the show. It was two networks actually had it for the third season. It was picked up by a different network. I don't remember who it was, but at any rate, that became available on the Family Channel.
Yep.
And in syndication then thereafter, and I remember then Batman '66 and. And I knew that this existed, but I had no idea what it was like. And I remember watching it, and Family Channel, I believe, did like one night was one episode, then the cliffhanger, and then the next night was the end of the resolution. You know how it was. So Adam West that was my exposure, and I think that that was for a 11, 12-year-old kid. in the late 80s. It seemed cheesy and campy, but it was very entertaining. And they produced a lot of episodes, a lot of content. You got to see many Batman villains, some from the comics, some just inventions of the show come to life. It was some great actors. Vincent Price was Egghead, for crying out loud. Burgess Meredith as the Penguin. Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. Right? So it was really, really well done. But Adam West was for that show at that time, was a very good Batman. Can't imagine anyone else. I don't think it would have worked. Maybe I could be wrong, but he just sort of embodied that and that silliness, and charged it up a little bit more, and I don't know, helped make it iconic. It would have been, because it was Batman and it had the Bam and the Pow and the automatopoeia graphics and all that stuff and the cool Batmobile. But I think that he made it even more iconic by bringing that Adam Westness to it. Yeah, and he, he obviously knew the tone of the show and he played to that tone, but he brought a seriousness to it. I mean, I hesitate to say that because it's not the same, like the way Keaton brought a seriousness to his performance, but West was able to make his tone almost work against the campiness. And so like you could tell that Batman and that Bruce Wayne was in it. Like this was his world, and it was perfectly normal to him, and he was Batman and he had to take care of all these villains. And it was a ridiculous show. Yes. He was totally straight. He was not in on the joke. He played it like he was Batman, and it felt very natural, and it was all very silly, but he was giving the best performance that he possibly could. Yeah, and you more eloquently explained what I was trying to say. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Did you know that his performance in Batman led to them offering him the role of James Bond for Diamonds Are Forever? I did not know that. I'm very glad that did not. Well, Adam West turned it down, and he said the character is James Bond. He should be played by a British person. And so that was the logic, even though he had previously been played by a Scottish person, but forget that. Right. But over there somewhere was what Adam West was basically saying. Basically, yeah. But I kind of want to see the alternate universe where Adam West plays James Bond in Diamonds Are Forever. I would watch that movie. Well, I mean, it got as ridiculous later on with Roger Moore, right? So, but I do think that at the very least we stayed that for a little bit longer with Diamonds Are Forever. And interestingly enough, I think Adam West and Roger Moore actually have a lot in common. It seems like the Broccolis were really set on that idea of Adam West being Batman, and then they just said, "Well, we can't get West. Let's get Roger Moore." You know what? He's the British Adam West, or Adam West is the American Roger Moore. I never thought about that, but you're right. Yeah, and I think the costume was exactly what it needed to be. It was it was spandex or whatever, but it looked it looked like what you would expect from a 1960s TV show. You had the Green Hornet on at the same time. It looked no different, even though that was a much more serious endeavor, and they had a crossover where Kato and Robin fought to a standstill, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. So from there, though, the Batman craze did not end at just releasing the 66 stuff. Then you got the serials. Ah, yes. And the serials, there was 2 serials that came out, and it came out in the 40s. 1943 came the Batman serial called Batman, or The Batman, I'm not sure. And in 1949, then you got another serial called Batman and Robin. And they both featured villains that were created just for the serial. Dr. Daka for Batman 43, and for 49 was the Wizard. And those were played by, do you have down who they were played by? Lewis G. Wilson for the 43 serial, and Robert Lowry for the 49 serial. So what I was going to do was just make up names and see if you could notice, just to show that I would have noticed. Serials mean nothing. Well, they mean something historically. They mean something kind of, sort of, but not. I actually watched the one with the Wizard here recently. I've seen it fairly recently. They're awful. They are. There are many times where you wonder if Robin is on Ambien during the one with the Wizard, and I don't remember 43. I've not watched that one since 89 or 90 when I got the VHS collection with the cereals on there. But what it was Columbia Cereals, back when this little Central American country was making a ton of movies for Hollywood. I don't know how it happened, but they were pushing them out. And
I don't know it was that Colombian.
It was. Maybe not. But anyway, the exchange rate was favorable. They were making them down to Central America. The Columbia was, they did lots of cereals, but unlike the Superman series from the 50s with George Reeves, these Batman, which is, beloved, and even in the new Flash movie, you get just a little glimpse of that. These Batman movies are largely forgotten because they're just not very good.
They were made for fodder to have shown between the actual movies that people came to see. So you're absolutely right. Whereas the George Reeves Superman, that was made by somebody that you could tell had a love of the character and a respect of it. And this was just like, oh, hey, those comic books are making money. Let's make a movie of those. Said much similar to that, I'm sure.
Well, with a Colombian accent, of course. I don't know what that means there. But so I have nothing really to say about that other than they're interesting novelties, but they add nothing. And I think there was some innovations that came from that. I believe that the Bat Cave was established as a proper place in those serials, and maybe even Alfred was introduced, not as a character, but as his role in participating in the crime fighting was brought in the open during those serials as well. But I don't know if they matter much, do they?
So let me get this straight. Robert Lowry is not going to be your Batman at the end of this podcast?
He is not. I was going to make up an old-timey name like Ray Toddson or something. I don't know. I actually wrote down in my notes, make up names. That was my notes. And I wanted to see if you would notice. My point was, and then you go and blow it by
I did.
doing your homework. But yeah, but like all good kids at the time, right? I bought those cereals because I wanted to see more Batman.
Exactly.
When you see those black and white pictures of those costumes, particularly the 43 costume looks really cool.
Yeah.
It looks like the 43 costume looks like it came off the comic page. It's actually really neat. I remember not being impressed, and I'm certainly not even then, right? He was hungry as I was for the content.
Yeah.
And then we got
more Batman.
More Batman,
yeah.
Right? We got two, right? We got more Keaton.
We did.
We got Keaton.
Batman Returns.
Redux, whatever.
That's the re-edit that Coppola did later.
Yes, yeah, Coda.
Yeah.
Batman Returns.
Batman Returns Coda, yes.
Coda. Then he rises. Forever with Robin. That's so stupid. That's not even funny. I am ashamed that I said all that. I just kind of strung it together. You can do that with those Batman. There's so many.
I thought it was funny.
Well, thank you. But we got more Keaton. We don't want to go like too deep into the movies like reviewing these, but I think Batman Returns is an extremely flawed film. I thought the Keaton's performance was fine. Mm-hmm. I think he was doing the best that he could in a movie that was broken.
It's such an interesting movie, though. I mean, it did so many things right and so many things wrong at the same time. It's a bizarre film that has a special place in my heart. I'll say that.
I think that you would have to, in order to really find that a positive take on it. Maybe I'm just too negative about it. But, the Penguin is, grotesque body horror, which is what, he was, played by Danny DeVito. And the bizarre... I love Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, but... that whole interchange between her and Danny DeVito makes me feel gross and like I need to report it to the FBI. She just ate a bird.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was, and Burton himself admits this, he's like, the studio was selling Batman Returns to McDonald's and I'm making a gross out horror movie.
Yeah.
And it landed exactly as you would think something described that way would land. And I remember my parents taking me to it and just being mortified and being like, I can't believe we took our child to see that movie because it was horrible and gross and all those sorts of things. And as I've grown up, like I said, I kind of, I don't know, I'm just fascinated by it. It's such an interesting watch. And I can almost forgive it for its mistakes because it does do enough things right, and it's definitely the Catwoman, Batman, Chris Walken side of it that makes up for the Penguin side of it.
The Max Schreck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that a criticism of the first film was that it had too much Burton and not enough Batman. And I think for the second film, it was just simply a Tim Burton movie that also happened to have Batman as a character.
Yeah, it definitely went further.
It went, you know, I think it went to the detriment of not just that movie, but for the whole series.
Yeah, because there was no way they were going to give him a third one.
Right.
And so then they were like, find anybody.
Yep.
And then Joel Schumacher shows up.
Yeah, but before that, and maybe I've got the timing wrong, but I thought we got an animated movie in there. And I'm not going to be one of those people who, and I absolutely despise this when I see it, like a Reddit conversation about Batman, and they're like, well, actually, the greatest Batman is Kevin Conroy. And like, oh, no, please don't go there, because Kevin Conroy didn't have to wear the suit.
Yes.
Kevin Conroy didn't have to do the stunts. He didn't have to emote. And he didn't have to do... He had to do the voice for a cartoon, and he was the best. For the most part, I actually really like Peter Weller's voice in The Dark Knight Rises a lot. But that being said, I mean, everyone knows Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman.
Yeah.
He's not the best Batman ever. He's not the best live-action, quote-unquote, Batman ever. The actuallys of the world, come on, just don't compare those things, because it's not
it
really
is not the same.
Fair.
Agreed.
But, I mean, we did get Mask of the Phantasm.
And we got the animated series.
In the animated series.
And the only reason I fought for the inclusion is because he deserves to be mentioned. I agree that it's not a fair fight. It's not a fair situation. The people who say Kevin Conroy is the best Batman, I would disagree with that fundamentally. But the man did amazing work in the animated series, went on to do, I think, all of the video games.
I think so.
And you know, he deserves credit, because he did an amazing job. And you put him with Mark Hamill as the Joker, and you have got a winning combination that I will tune into every single time.
Mark Hamill is the best live-action Joker, who's not actually live action, but is action. I hear that, and I see that rather in Reddit or comic book forums or whatever. Like, oh, please don't do this. It's not even sensical. But yeah. So, you absolutely have to recognize him as Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman. When you're reading the comics, for some people, maybe many, right? Maybe most, I don't know. They read it in Conroy's voice. I don't, but I know a lot of people who say that they do, and it totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I read it in my voice, which is weird, and that's why I know. Batman's a weenie. But yeah, so I think that we absolutely recognize that he was a great animated voice of Batman. And then we go on to someone we spoke about a little bit before, I think.
We've
pretty sure we had an episode about Val Kilmer in Batman Forever, an unfortunate film in every way. Val Kilmer on paper is probably the one who should be the best Batman on this list.
I agree.
I think we'll make some arguments when we get further in, but just he should be top 2. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of the quality actor who's played Batman. Yeah. I think you can make the argument that he's the best actor to ever play Batman. I think you can make the argument. He's in the top 2. Let's adjudicate that maybe later on. But on paper, it should work out. Right. He is an incredible actor. He was passionate about doing the role, so passionate he accepted it without reading the script, right? And the movie was awful. I mean, it was just terrible. Yeah. The villains were terrible. Jim Carrey, I think, could have been a great Riddler. Just there was just not the right direction, not the right script, and it did not work. And obviously, Kilmer, and he talked about this in his documentary, Val, hated every minute of it. Didn't feel like he was acting. Didn't feel like he was doing anything but shouting lines and having to do exaggerated movements so that it could look sort of natural, because the suit was so constrictive, and it was unfortunately just not a very good Batman, because the whole thing didn't work. Nothing in that movie was good.
Yeah. Now, I wonder how much of that is the director's fault.
Schumacher?
Yeah.
I think a lot, right? I think you could put on him. I think he wrote the script or maybe did the story.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is because Keaton, the previous live action Batman, had all the same restrictions in the suit, everything like that, and he was afforded the ability to craft a performance.
Yes.
And he was able to bring his take to Bruce Wayne, his take to Batman. I don't feel like Kilmer was afforded that possibility. I think that Schumacher was the one that said, shut up and get in the suit. And I would love to have seen Val working with a different director who had given him the opportunity to say, okay, I know you're in this giant thing of rubber. I know you don't like it. I know it's uncomfortable, but let's work together and let's figure out something that works. And I think that would have been way more interesting.
It should have been so much better than it was.
Now I will say, I don't remember when that movie came out, but I was young and I was stupid, and I walked into that movie thinking this is going to be amazing, and I walked out of that movie thinking that was amazing. And then when I grew older, I realized that I was dumb and that it was not amazing.
I don't think I had any positive feelings on it when I saw it. I think I liked that first little bit where he was in the traditional Batman Forever outfit that looked like a Batman from a comic book, and then as the movie progresses, he's in that one of those weird Batman super suit things. But I don't know if I did feel positively about it. I've forgotten that, so I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt that I did not like that.
That's fair.
Pretty poor movie. But again, I think we'll get back to as we go a little further into this, because we're going to break into the great actors playing Batman in a bit. But nothing about that worked.
No,
and maybe Kilmer was part of the problem. I don't know, but I do know that Val Kilmer turned in some incredible performances in difficult roles. He could have done that with this, and he was certainly interested and willing, and it didn't work. And the rest of the movie was a flaming hot disaster too. So
it really was.
But then we go from a dumpster fire to the entire landfill being uncontrollably burning in Batman and Robin with someone else who, and I don't think as much of his acting, but he's a good actor, right? I don't think he's Kilmer level, and that's George Clooney.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie. I mean, what can be said about that? It's just awful. Akiva Goldsmith wrote that one. I do know that.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, Akiva Goldsmith wrote
Oof. He's going to pay us to take that out of this podcast. I will say that I give Clooney more credit than you do as an actor broadly. There have been so many roles that Clooney has played that I have absolutely loved and think he's a pretty remarkable actor. But I will say that there is nothing about him that should have been Batman. And I think he would agree with me. I don't think I'm talking out of turn. It's not his style. It's not his thing. It's not his look. It's not his wheelhouse. Nothing.
Yep.
And the only reason he was cast is because he was a hot actor at the time. Yep. And they just lost Val Kilmer. I firmly believe that. And Schumacher was like, oh, and it's interesting. If you look at the Schumacher films as a pair, I think it's very obvious that Schumacher is much more interested in the villains than he is in Batman. And he gives them
Neon, I think. Neon
yes.
And some weird Dayglow stuff. And I don't, but he's not interested in Batman. I agree on that. Yeah.
He's completely not interested in Batman. And which does not mean his villains are great either. And I'll give Schumacher his share. He has made good movies. The Batman movies just are not among them. And so Batman Forever is, as you said, a landfill completely ablaze with no hope of returning.
Yes. Well, but Batman did return.
He did return.
Right? So, and several years later.
In a film called Batman Returns. No.
Well, he started over. This Batman started over.
This Batman began. He did not return.
Yes. Because I was unclear about Batman's origins. And I was really glad they decided to go back and tell that story. Like, okay, now I get it. Bruce Wayne's parents got shot.
Killed. Yes. And that's what made him.
Yeah. I think I'm clear on it now. Maybe a few more retellings and I'll get it.
I didn't understand it until Ben Affleck did it. And then it clicked for me.
So what I like about this next movie, we've talked at length about Chris Nolan movies, but it was smart enough to take Batman's origin story and say, this is going to be the movie, right? We're not going to, it's not just about Wayne's parents getting killed by Joe Chill in the back of the movie theater in the alley. But it's about that whole progress of how Batman Begins. It's a good title.
It is.
It really is apt. But that movie is incredible.
Sure.
I don't know if we don't need to get into it.
No.
If you've listened to the show, we did a whole thing on Nolan.
Yes, we did. And we talked about that movie being incredible. So I'm gonna direct you a little bit. What we did not talk about too much in that Nolan episode is Christian Bale as Batman.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
So before we go, I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
Should we talk? Let's just say the next three movies, right? The next two movies, right? The Begins, Dark Knight Rises, right? That is an arc, a complete unbroken set of films. There's no other Batmans in there.
Sure.
So let's just talk about the performances.
Yes.
Across those.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, you get a Bruce Wayne that you show learning how to be a ninja bat, right? This is the ninja bat iteration in Nolan's universe. Learning from the League of Shadows, from a fantastic Ra's al Ghul, played by Liam Neeson, brilliant casting. You get a real arc there where he realizes that he must, stay Batman and keep Bruce Wayne on the back burner and his love Rachel on the back burner in order to protect the city. And then you see in The Dark Knight, Bruce Wayne is like, I can give this up because we have a hero now in Harvey Dent, and he lets his love for Rachel, come out, and he becomes vulnerable, and she dies, and then he gets absorbed into this sadness for many years and rises, and then comes back. You get a full arc there. You can have all the criticisms you want about Rises, but there's a complete arc, and there's a complete arc for Bruce Wayne, and there's a complete arc for Batman, and they're not exactly intertwined, but they're not separate either. They're not treated like two different. There are two different characters. I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical, but it really is complete. It's a complete performance of both the Wayne character and the Bat character, and I think that Bale obviously in the first film he is a giant of a man who actually the story is that he got too muscly for Batman Begins, and Nolan made him lose 40 pounds of muscle.
Oh, I didn't know
before Batman Begins started, and that was just after The Machinist. And so Bale went from like 120 to 230 or 240, and then went back down to 200 or something. Craziness, something like that, right? So he was committed to the role. He looked like he stepped off the comic book page. He was a young, idealistic Batman learning to use his wealth to be a crime fighter. All the stuff about he had to learn how to make his cape, fly, and he had to procure a Batmobile and use his wealth in such crazy ways. And then he had to also put on the Wayne act, right? And then have the real Wayne. When he's with Alfred. So when the Wayne act he's drinking, he's in the fountain with the ladies, gonna buy the hotel, don't worry, I just bought this hotel, we can do whatever we want. And then he's got the real, vulnerable, committed Wayne with Alfred. It's a complete performance. It is, I think that when you say arguably the best actor being, Val Kilmer, one of the best, the one he has to compete with, I think, is Christian Bale, who is a great actor and is a great Bruce Wayne and a great Batman in a complete trilogy of movies that stands on its own, and I think will stand on its own for as long as movies are a thing. What do I think of him as Batman and Bruce Wayne? I think he's incredible, and he's totally believable as much as that character could ever be believable.
You're right about everything that you said.
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard that in my life.
Well, I'm glad I could do that for you. Now, I will say it's interesting to me that he is the only actor who was able to complete that arc. Everybody else has been interrupted in one way, shape, or form. So the fact that he got to do that, I think, is a testament to his talent, testament to Chris Nolan's talent, and a testament to the studio just freaking getting out of the way and saying, make me some movies. And it's not, I will not say it's a flawless performance. There are some things about it that every once in a while I'll see something and I'll be like, I don't know that I would have done that. Of course, I'm not an actor. And
is this Bat voice related stuff?
It is the voice related stuff. Yeah.
In the second movie, the voice did get more. He turned that up.
He did. Yeah. And I don't know that I understand why the voice was chosen. and the plot reason for the voice, but I do think he took it a little too far. And there are a couple of scenes where it's so intense that it becomes jarring and almost comical. So I won't say it's a flawless performance, but Bale is incredible. Bale's incredible in everything he's ever done. I've never seen him give a bad performance,
even in bad movies.
Exactly,
like Terminator, Salvation.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Not a great movie.
No, but Bale's great in it.
He turns in a great John Connor. The definitive, as far as I'm concerned, he is John Connor as an adult. And,
so great. Great films, great performance, great.
Yeah, the bad voice, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, you have to do something, right? Or as we'll talk later, maybe you don't. Maybe Batman doesn't have to do anything. It's just a very strange choice, but you got to do something to disguise that voice, right? Yes. And so the natural way that they did it was to lower that. Where are they? that.
Well, but Keaton does a different voice too. It's just not nearly as extreme.
Keaton's is more subtle. And I like what they've done. I like Bale's bad voice generally. I do. A few times it does come across as a little like throaty and like he's out of breath.
Swear to me.
Yeah.
That one's one of the ones I struggle with.
Yes. And I do. Every minute he's on screen, I believe in him as Batman. That this works. You're a serious actor doing this role, and you're doing it in a serious film, and it's just all coming together. It's working, and it works. I'm not sure that we're ever going to get a series of comic book movies that fits together the way The Dark Knight has. I mean, everything that the MCU has done that's been great, none of it's still
true.
You could distill down the first 4 phases into 10 hours of greatness, it still wouldn't be as great as the Dark Knight movies. And you're just, it's going to be really tough to do that. And a huge part of that is Christian Bale's excellent performance as both a believable Bruce Wayne. You believe him as being a billionaire business tycoon who's outsmarting Rutger Hauer in the first film and, living double lives in the second film and as a recluse in the third film. You totally believe that. And you also believe him as the crime fighter, the ninja bat with the techno gear, the body armor, and also driving around a tank in Gotham City. It's just so perfect. I struggle to find a real criticism of it other than occasionally the bat voice is a little intense.
No, you're right. And that's pretty much the only criticism I can lob towards him. And it's a pretty minor criticism, given the whole of the 3 films together.
Yeah.
And the fact that in the third one, especially, you get the exhaustion that Batman has brought to Bruce Wayne's life. And I don't think I've ever seen that before portrayed. I mean, it comes up in the comics, but in the films, that was a new thing to see. And Bale did it fantastically.
Nope, you're right. It was something that we had saw in the comics many times, including in, I don't want to get too comic book nerdy, but like the Nightfall series,
sure.
Really, I mean, that was the whole point, right? I'm going to exhaust Batman until we can kill him. And that was actually kind of there, right? Kind of, sort of. I thought it worked better in The Dark Knight Rises than it did in the comic books.
Completely agree.
Yeah. But I think I think The Dark Knight Rises is a great film, and it's the most flawed of the 3 of them. But I still really like it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. I don't know. I think it's the most flawed, but I still think I like it better than Begins. I revisit that list. I mean, it doesn't matter. The Dark Knight's better than all of them, so I guess I can just be comfortable in that knowledge.
Yeah, that's fair.
So then we wrap up the trilogy.
We do.
And then we get The Man of Steel by Mr. Zack Snyder.
Yeah,
a movie I love. And then right after that came out, and there came to mixed reviews. Right, not to acclaim, but I think it's a near perfect film. And we it's not a Superman discussion, but we can debate that some other time. But then shortly thereafter, they announced, all right, we got Batman versus Superman, and I believe he announced it at a Comic-Con, and he showed some like early concepts or something. I can't remember.
The shot of Ben Affleck in the armor when the eyes light up.
That's how. Yes, yeah. And you're like, holy cow! I mean, he's bringing some crazy deep cut Frank Miller stuff.
Yes,
and he's got the visual. And I knew Zack Snyder, like him or hate him, visuals are always good. Always, I mean, he had already delivered a comic accurate more or less visually 100% on the Watchmen. When we got Batman versus Superman, and you're getting Ben Affleck, and man, I had some mixed emotions. I'm like, man, Ben Affleck, skinny, Boston accent, Ben Affleck. Oh, what? That was
Sure.
huh?
Sure.
Like, okay, I know he's a good actor, but huh?
Yeah.
And at the time, it's like, who's going to be better than Bale? Like, well, nobody.
Right.
Right? But I don't know. How did you feel when you heard that Ben Affleck was our new Batman, and he's playing an older Batman, a more mature one?
So when I heard it, I dismissed it immediately, just as I had done decades before when I heard Keaton was going to be Batman. I dismissed it immediately. But then I thought, you know what? We've done this with Keaton. We did this with Heath Ledger and the Joker. I'm not going to be that guy. Okay, Ben Affleck's going to play Batman. Let's see how this plays out. And I'll tell you, I do not like the movie. I don't like Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. I think it fails in just about everything it set out to do.
It needed a longer title.
It did. That was one fault. But as an older Batman, as an almost completely Frank Miller inspired Batman, I thought Ben Affleck was great.
Yeah.
I thought he looked the part. I loved the gray that they put in to kind of accent that. I thought he was great as Bruce Wayne. I thought he was great as Batman. I loved the fact that he is the smartest guy in every scene he's in that movie. And then going on further into Justice League, they continue that he's got the plan. He's the guy that figures out how to defeat the most powerful entity on Earth. And he's got the kryptonite and the suit and and he's going in with intelligence, which is what I want.
Doing detective work,
which is what I want for my Batman. The reason Batman has always spoke to me as a character is because he's a human amongst superhumans, and he is smart enough to outthink every single one of them.
Yep.
And that really comes across in Ben Affleck's Batman and Zack Snyder's Batman. By virtue of him making the films. Yeah. So I think they're flawed movies. I don't like the movies, but I kind of like Val Kilmer. I wish Ben Affleck had his shot at really delivering a Batman performance, because I think it would have been amazing.
So I like the movies much better than you do. I do agree they are flawed, particularly Justice League. I think I think Justice League, the director's cut or the Snyder cut, is much better, but it's still very, very flawed to the point of being, I think, basically broken. But I think that Ben Affleck's Batman it's so good on every level. It is, from the Batman point of view, cape and cowl, the costume, first of all, wow. I mean, that brought to life, the fight scenes brought to life. I mean, he looks like the Batman. He is violent, maybe to a fault, although, a lot of times he's fighting like Frank Miller's Batman did in The Dark Knight Returns, which is a Batman that just does not have time to do anything but just, beat up everything in his way and, hope that he didn't break his one rule. And so I think he looked fantastic. His voice wasn't a voice. It was the digital modification. Right. I think that's the smartest Batman on screen. Is part of his, I'm going to protect my identity. He stays in shadow, doesn't allow himself to be photographed, doesn't come out during the day. That was, and then you get the digital voice. It sounded creepy. It sounded scary. It was very cool. In the Legend of the Bat in Gotham City, the Gotham Bat. I just thought he was a spectacular Batman. And every time that he was in his Batman suit and on the screen, he stole the scene. He owned it. He commanded, he had presence. I
would love to see a true film version of The Dark Knight Returns with Ben Affleck as Batman. I think that would be really interesting. That would be amazing.
I'm not sure we would ever get him back in the cowl at this point.
But maybe if you're like, here's the comic, read this, give me a call.
Yeah.
And maybe. Because I think he would do that. He'd be like, Batman.
Security, get this guy away from me.
Like, no, just read the comic.
No.
I think he would do that version of Batman so much justice. No pun intended.
The dawn of it. He'd do so much. He'd start at dawn, and then he'd end at the dusk of justice.
That's how much justice he would give it.
But I mentioned him, the cape and cowl, and then you got Bruce Wayne, and I think that his Bruce Wayne is even better. And I think that when he's on screen as Bruce Wayne, it is just believable. It is, and you mentioned the smartest guy in the room when he's standing there with Lex Luthor. I wish he would have just punched him and killed him, and it's just awful. I think his Bruce Wayne is the Bruce Wayne from the comic, where he's doing half the Batman work, there, right? Breaking into the stuff at Luthor's, mansion or his party or whatever, and then his interactions with Wonder Woman are fantastic.
Yes.
And then you see him at the fight when he's with the Russian guy who's KGB agent. He's giving he watches the fight for a few moments, gives the Street Fighter the tip. Street Fighter uses that tip to win. It's like, yeah, because he's Batman, right? And of course he's going to do something like that, because this is a different kind of Bruce Wayne, right? And the contrast I like is Nolan's Bruce Wayne, pretended to get drunk and throw the champagne out. Snyder's Affleck's Bruce Wayne is taking pills, because he's got pain pills. At one point you see him getting a prescription pain pill out of it and drinking wine to the point where Alfred is concerned that the Wayne wine cellar might be drained by Bruce Wayne. Totally different Batman, right? Yeah. Totally different Bruce Wayne, a completely different characterization and portrayal in a different universe. He's comic accurate, right? He can hang with Superman, he can outthink the smartest bad guys. It's a flawed universe that Snyder built, and he built it way too quickly and without an input from other people who think differently than him, right? I think it's just kind of like maybe the George Lucas prequels problem, where too many people are agreeing with you and let you do whatever you want to do, and then you're not constrained, so it's not very good. It's kind of messy. I think that Snyder had that, but inside the middle of that, there were some great performances, and Ben Affleck's is one of them. And it's a real challenge for me, because I might have to decide who my Batman is at some point coming soon. We did have, though, to come back to it, we got a cap off. It's Justice League. I don't know if you have anything more you want to say about Justice League. It's just an awful, terrible movie, and it's best forgotten and moved past. But we did get him in the new Flash movie.
We did.
Affleck returned for a beginning action set piece. I think the worst thing in the movie, that whole beginning. Have you seen The Flash?
I've only seen clips. Okay. I did not get a chance to watch the whole movie, because it's 3 hours.
It's 3 hours long. I saw it. I saw it in the theater. I get it.
In fact, my wife and I sat down last night, and we're like, okay, we're going to watch The Flash because I'm recording the podcast tomorrow. I need to watch this movie. And we pull it up, and I was like, if we start this now, it will be midnight before this movie's over. Yeah.
Well, and I get it. That opening scene with The Flash and Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot, I don't know how you say it. This is not a Wonder Woman episode. It doesn't matter. It's terrible. It's sloppy. It's shoddy. Ben Affleck, I think I made this joke about Robin earlier. I'll say it again. I think Ben Affleck was on Ambien during that scene. He did not want to be there. His costume was saggy. It did not fit. It was it was not I don't know why. Okay, listen, just go grab the costume from, Batman vs. Superman, tighten it up, because Affleck is nowhere near as bulky as he was. But then the terrible, ill-fitting costume, the whole thing just is abysmal, and it's so clear Ben Affleck, like, I'm done, do not ever bring me back.
Yeah.
And peace out, right? Like, he's done. And he's dropping the cape and cowl and tossing his batarangs off his shoulders. It's a sad way for one of my favorite Batmen, who was really only got to shine, and I think in one movie, which is Batman Superman. It was a sad way for it to end, but it ended. Yeah, he didn't want to do it. Yeah, DC screwed up everything in that that 10-year cinematic universe experiment that they had, and one of the casualties is Ben Affleck was a great Batman, totally ruined, misused,
never got a shot.
Yep. But the movie isn't over with that. Some people probably were thinking, man, I wish this movie was over after the babies in the microwave scene, which I don't know if you saw any of that, which is the baby. Okay, well, there's a CGI heavy scene where Ezra Miller's Flash is saving babies from falling off a hospital roof or something. Anyway, one of them ends up in a microwave, which that was actually stuff from behind the scenes of Ezra Miller's life. They caught some behind the scenes.
They just got some
Ezra, what? Get the baby out of the microwave. No. I shouldn't do that. I'm picking fun of someone who's not well. So anyway, but the movie continues, and we get another Batman. More,
Yes.
but this is like the movie of Batman. It's all. It's not.
It wanted to be.
Batman.
It wanted to be a Batman movie.
It
Not
wanted to be a
Flash
Batman movie.
Yes.
And we get the return. And I'm just going to say it, the glorious return of Michael Keaton as Batman. And I'll say this: Michael Keaton as Batman as he always should have been. It was like Gandalf saying, "I am not Sauron or Saruman." Excuse me. Darn it, Tolkien, for making Sauron and Saruman so close. I am not Saruman, but perhaps I am as he should have been.
Yes.
And that's the way Keaton's. I am not. Perhaps, I don't know. I don't know. How would Michael Keaton do that voice? I'm not. It should have. That's Jay Leno doing it. That's how it should have been.
Jay Leno was fantastic as Batman.
He would have the chin, like you knew it was him. Like, hey, Jay, why are you wearing a Batman ears?
I'm not Jay Leno.
But he came back, and he came back strong, like so good that it was better than it turned the whole for me. It turned my whole opinion of the movie around. He was so good. He was good as a burned out, old, bearded, homeless ZZ Top Bruce Wayne. TM. Homeless ZZ Top Bruce Wayne is a t-shirt line I'm putting out. And then you got him as a reluctant Batman coming back and absolutely being great at the kind of Batman he was, right? I'm a good fighter. I'm gadgety. But I can't do miracles. My gadgets can get pretty close, and I got some cool tech, and just this all around cool Batman. Somewhat updated and refreshed, but just it was so good. I wish that the whole movie would have just been him with the Flash as a side character, and I think it would have been fantastic. But to me, that was like the promise of Keaton's Batman was fulfilled. That he was very good, and he just was never in a movie that showcased it until now, and it was great.
So he got his third act, is what you're saying.
He got his third act.
Interesting.
And I never thought about it like how until you framed it in the way that Nolan let Christian Bale finish, and I think that now that Keaton's had his opportunity to come and resolve his Batman arc.
Interesting. So I don't want to say too much because I have not seen The Flash. I will ask this question.
And you're fired from the podcast.
Dang it. Man, where are you going to find another middle-aged guy?
I know another one. I have heard that there's another middle-aged guy out there somewhere who saw The Flash.
Okay, fine. Anyway. So,
you're rehired. Now you're back.
Thank you. At 50% salary. Anyway, the trailers and the clips that I've seen, do they play up the lines too much? Like you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Is that as heavy-handed as it feels like it's going to be?
I did not think they were there, right? I mean, but I didn't think they were the I don't know. I'm not sure the right way to put it, but it wasn't the "I'll be back" repeated 48 times, right? Okay. In every movie, like here's the "I'll be back," or here's the "I got a bad feeling about this," or "I hate flying," or the Star Wars sayings.
Sure.
But I mean, they were there and they were punctuated. They had exclamation points behind them, but they made sense in the scene and the context.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I really, really. I liked The Flash much more than I expected, and I really liked Keaton's Batman to the point where. I gained a whole new respect for his performance, and it just made me sad that we did not get that earlier.
Yeah. All right. Well, as much as I'd like to end it there, we got another. Batman.
There's another Batman.
There's another Batman.
Kevin Conroy's dead.
No, he did not. It's not Kevin Conroy. It's Robert Pattinson.
The Twilight guy?
Yeah, he was Batman in a movie called The Batman.
The Batman. I'm glad they put the.
Because that distinguishes it completely.
From Batman. I saw this movie in the theaters.
Yeah.
And last night, preparing for the show, I thought I'd better go back and, bone up a little bit and get ready and remind myself how I felt about the movie. And then I did, and I regretted every minute of it. The Batman is a terrible movie.
It really is.
And Robert Pattinson is a great actor.
Yes. Who
was completely miscast as sad, goth Bruce Wayne and Batman. But worse than his Batman is his Bruce Wayne. It is absolutely unwatchably bad what he did with Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is, in the movie, mopey, sad.
Yeah.
Mentally ill, right? But our Batman from the comics and the other films used that to drive him to be like, I don't sleep, I don't stop, and this Batman is just like, it's like, how is he not like clinically depressed playing Nintendo all day, right?
Exactly.
It does not, the movie doesn't work for me at any level other than I enjoyed Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and I thought that the way Colin Farrell did the Penguin was incredible. The makeup job, the performance, the characterization was good. That movie stinks. That Batman is sad. That Batman is if Kurt Cobain played Batman. That just is mopey and emo, and none of it works.
Yeah.
But particularly the Bruce Wayne parts don't work. I have a real issue with the whole Batman wearing the contact lenses to record what he does so he can go back and watch it again to force himself to remember it. It's like, no, this Batman, our Batman has a photographic memory.
Well, this Batman doesn't know Spanish either. So
that's right. This Batman is not, and nor, the interesting thing is, I think the choice to make this Batman get beat up by everyone he encounters was an interesting choice.
So this is where I'm going to lead off of the conversation and say they missed an opportunity because Pattinson has proven himself. The kid can act. They really could have gone hard Batman Year One with this, and I think it would have played really well if they'd let Pattinson play the role that way, if the script had been written that way, and if they'd gone for that direction. But instead, it feels like they're going for like this weird Batman Year 2, Year 3 thing. Yeah. Like they're trying to walk that line, and it just doesn't work. And to me, the biggest crime of the movie is that it is boring.
It is boring.
Oh my goodness. Like when I did not see it in the theater, I saw it on streaming. And while I was watching it, I kept pausing it thinking, there's that much left.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to blame writers, directors. I'm not going to blame Pattinson.
He didn't have the commitment to the role, and they were filming it during lockdown, and he made comments about like, I'm not staying in shape, and I'm thinking, man, Christian Bale like gains and loses 100 pounds to play a role. You can lift a weight, man. I mean, he was miscast.
Well, and there was some reported tension between him and the director as well. Like they didn't get along, and there was problems with how he wanted to portray Batman and how Matt Reeves, is that who directed
Matt Reeves,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, Matt Reeves wanted the character played. But what blows my mind is they're doing another one. Like I don't. Yeah,
I mean, I'll see it out of compulsion, but not because I want to.
I'll see it only when you make me record a podcast.
We have our Batman, the Batman 2, the sequel. Yeah. But the way I described it, and my son and I debate this because he really likes the movie, and I think it's hot trash, and it is like a combination of Begins and The Dark Knight. It's like Nolan Light. There's similar beats. You got a crazy serial killer, Joker, Riddler type character, although the Riddler's never been a crazy serial killer type character in the comic books before. In fact, comic book nerdy lore in Kingdom Come, the Riddler's a good guy because he's reformed, because he was never that bad of a bad guy to begin with, right?
And the costume and making him this kind of like anarchy, it was so bizarre. It was
so bizarre. And then you got the police station scene, and you've got a police station scene in The Dark Knight, which is a great one. You've got one in The Batman, which is a terrible one. And then you've got these fight scenes, the club fight scene. You've got a club fight scene in The Dark Knight. You've got a club fight scene in The Batman. In The Dark Knight, Batman just kicks everybody's butt to get to Maroni and get to it. In this one, everybody shoots, knocks down Batman, and it only stopped because the gangsters say, "Come on, you can come talk to the Penguin," which is what they usually do. It's a mess. It doesn't work. The Batman is a joke. He is, half the people he fights knock him down, and it's this Nolan Light sort of weirdness. So much stuff is ripped off of the Joker. Their Riddler is, trying to recruit unstable people, and instead of going to the asylums to get them, this Joker or the Riddler goes and does it through social media because it's 2020 when they made this, or 21, and you just do that, right? So I think that. I think it's a terrible movie. I think it shows me as a firm Gen Xer that I could certainly accept something new if it could stand on its own and be, a different or original interpretation. It feels like poor, watered-down interpretations of better performances of the past, specifically Christian Bale's. And
completely agree.
Movie.
Completely
And to think that universe has got their own Joker and
Right.
it's like, well, you know what? We got a Jared Leto Joker, right? And we lived through that. I'm sure that whatever mess Reeves comes up with. And I remember reading on the Reddit and other boards, like when they were preparing for Batman to come out, people would be like, and I was giving it a chance because I think Robert Pattinson's a good actor, so I'm open to this, right? And they'd say things like, yeah, man, Reeves I trust. And I'm like, why? Well, he made the Planet of the Apes movies. Okay, what else? What else makes you trust him? How about this? You want it to be good,
Yeah.
right? And we all do. And but you have no reason to trust him. Just like we really did not have that much reason to trust Nolan.
No, at the time, no.
And when Batman Begins came out, it happened to be great. Now, after he knocked that out of the park, you trusted him on everything because like this guy he can do almost any genre, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the Nolan slapstick comedy with Jim Carrey, like Dumb and Dumber 3, where
it makes you cry as much as it makes you laugh.
The twist is that they were brothers all along, or I don't know, something like that. But I people defend that movie, and then I get sucked down to these internet stupid things, and sometimes we should have a discussion about how you need to get out of the internet.
I think that's a great idea.
That's a great topic. We should consider that.
Yeah.
I do think that one of the questions I want to ask you before we have our crowning of who's your Batman.
Oh, we've missed a Batman.
We missed a Batman?
But ask your question. We'll get to him.
We're not going to talk about the Arkham Games Batman, are we?
No, that was Kevin Conroy. We
But people talk about the whole... All right.
No, ask me your question.
In a fight,
Yes.
which one of these Batmans is going to win? Because I've been seeing a lot of Robert Pattinson love out there from Robert Pattinson trolls. Battison. It's Battison. Yeah. Battison, Batflack, and... Pattinson, Batflack, and... what do they call Christian Bale? I think his Ninja Bat is what they usually call because he doesn't...
They should call him Mr. Bale.
Mr. Bale. Ooh.
No, I think Christian Bale, no question. I think he wins in the fight.
But you've seen the Ben Affleck movies, right? You've seen that he's basically a superhuman.
Are we going to let him wear the suit?
Well, even without the suit,
no, I think Christian Bale wins.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, that's better than Battison.
He's got youth on his side. He's,
I am going with all the way with Ben Affleck.
Okay.
Or
right.
Ben Affleck, I believe.
Batfleck?
Batfleck. I'm going all the way with Ben Affleck.
All right, fair enough.
I think he's great, and I think that his Batman's going to beat up all the other Batman.
Okay.
I think the one that comes the closest, Keaton's Batman. Actually,
over Bale?
Over
really?
Bale, yes.
Really?
I think that Keaton's Batman, particularly in The Flash, showed a... I mean, you include all the gadgets and stuff. He showed that he was a much closer comic book Batman than what we thought that he was.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. So now, the Batman we forgot, obviously, from Lego Batman, Will Arnett.
Oh, Lego Batman, Will Arnett. Yeah, I have seen Lego Batman, and of course... the Lego movie.
I kid.
Okay. You know what? For that, he's great.
He was great. Yeah.
But
we don't need to bring him into this conversation.
I want to talk about him for 20 solid minutes. On the internet forums, they keep talking about who's a better Lego character. And I don't play with Lego, so I don't know.
So we are to the moment, Dave. Who is your Batman?
Anticlimactic.
Do you want to drum it up a little bit more? Or do you want to do?
You know what? I'm going to split it. I cannot just name one. I have to say that well, you know what? I guess I just got to name one. I don't want wimping out here. It's got to be Christian Bale, but Ben Affleck is so close behind it, and the universes that they live inside are so different that it is okay for those to be polar opposite portrayals, which I think that they are.
Yeah.
But Christian Bale is going to win because everything about those films is just right.
Yeah.
And he is a big component of that, and you just can't deny it, right? And it goes my Batman. Who's your Batman? My Batman is Christian Bale.
That's fair. And it's debatable. It's arguable. And you have a good choice in Christian Bale. My Batman is Keaton.
All right.
I love his portrayal. We've talked a lot in this podcast about the differences between Bruce Wayne and Batman and the way those two characters are portrayed. And yes, I think you could argue that Bale had more range and had more opportunity to explore that range. But for me, I love Keaton's Bruce Wayne the most, and I love Keaton's Batman the most, because to me, they are the two performances that I believed the most. And I've thought about this. I've thought about this as we prepare for this podcast. I don't think I'm being blinded by nostalgia. I will leave the possibility open, but I don't think I am. I think I really, really like the way Keaton acts. I think he's a very intelligent actor. I've loved him in just about every movie I've ever seen him in. And what he brings to Batman, I think, is special. And I think it is my favorite. Now, would I say, oh, I would rather see Keaton cast in Nolan's Bat trilogy? I'm not saying that.
Worked, right?
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, all things considered, if I have to pick my favorite Batman, I'm picking Michael Keaton.
So if you had seen The Flash and you said that to me, I would say, I totally understand that.
Yeah, but
because
I haven't seen
that
the
movie made Keaton a better Batman. To me, right? To me. But having not seen The Flash, I really, I mean, it's your opinion. I respect it. I feel like he did so little in the Cape and Cowl. He got to do so little, right? So few lines in Returns and Batman '89. When he's in the full costume, it's hard for me to see him.
But he was so effective. And I'm thinking specifically of the opening of '89. When he's standing on top of the cathedral,
yes,
and you have the two thieves and then he shows up, and it's all presence because they didn't have the technology at the time. He was so restricted by that suit. He couldn't move the way Bale moves. He couldn't move the way Pattinson moves, in his bat suit or anything like that. It's all presence. And then even when he's Bruce Wayne, and he's a very flippant Bruce Wayne, which I love. When he's talking to Robert Wool, he's like, Alfred, get Knox a Grant, and he just walks away, and I love that kind of stuff. And he and Kim Basinger are sitting at that giant table having dinner, and then they move.
They move into the kitchen,
right? Exactly. There's all this personal stuff that happens that Keaton brings to that performance, and so to me, that makes it like in my mind, I like the Batman who. This is going to sound silly. I like the Batman who takes people out almost without having to move, as opposed to the ultra sleek fighting kind of
And
Batman.
that interestingly enough is the Batman we got in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
There was a lot more of that, like a horror movie almost. Like you don't see him do things; they just kind of happen, and you. But there was a lot of that certainly in '89, and then The Dark Knight changed it with the costume, and I think it actually became plausible to have a stuntman do this.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I contend you will like The Flash much more than you think you will, because you're going to be like, I'm getting to see Keaton do cool Batman stuff with other superheroes, something you never got to see him do before.
So Keaton is the only thing that makes me want to see that movie, and I will watch it when I have time. And maybe we can do an addendum, but
I think we have to come back and revisit this.
All right, that's fine.
And Ezra Miller's delicious microwave baby recipe, folks, for those who want it. That's actually there is a microwave baby part. Not a microwave baby. That makes me think of Heat. If you remember the movie Heat, Al Pacino. Anyway,
I can't even fathom it. But anyway,
it's real though. That's the thing. It's real, and it's part of that early part of the film. It's so bad.
All right. Well, I will watch it and I'll report back and we can talk about it. But right now, there's one other thing I want to know. I want to know who our audience's favorite Batman is. Who's your Batman out there, listeners? And where can they tell us, Dave?
They can go to the numeral 2, middle-aged guys. That's middle-aged. Maybe they've been missing our website because they've been typing middle-age, AGE, guys.
Surely not.
It's middle-aged
guys,
to middleagedguys.com. And you'll see all the stuff there to contact us on our website. You can also go find us at the numeral 2, middle-aged guys on Facebook. And you'll be able to reach out to us there, send us an email, shoot us an e-blast, whatever you like.
And we're on X. Come on, Dave.
Oh, that's right. We're on X, Twitter, X, whatever it is. I think that's still working. If anybody's on there, they can tweet at us at two middle-aged guys. That's it. I was going to say .com, but it's not.
That
would be silly.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been fun going through the Batman.
It has been.
We've had a lot of Batman in our lives.
Oh man.
And it's probably not going to stop.
Oh no, it's not, right? We can revisit this when we get the casting news of what they're doing next. When James Gunn does whatever he is going to do.
Who knows?
Who knows?
But until then, have a good one, everyone.